Hello and welcome back to the Odds Now YouTube channel. It's time for some darts on the channel today, much to my delight. And I am joined by a man who loves his arrows just as much as me, Connor Cain from our partner channel, Darts Now. Connor is going to be jetting out to Dortmund for the European Championship. His flight is booked for tomorrow, but I've managed to reel him in for this YouTube video before he jets off to preview the tournament. We'll be having a look at the odds for who's going to win it each quarter and just trying to work out how this tournament's going to go. Obviously, the European Championship, it's a little bit of a debatable one. Some people consider it a major. It's certainly a big TV title and a prestigious one to win. But before we go into detail on that, Connor, how you doing? You must be looking forward to getting out there.
I am looking forward to it, yeah. And I think this time of year just feels really, really special. Every single week is just an important week. There's that many majors. It was only 2 weeks ago that we had the World Grand Prix. Now we've got the European Championship, and then we're going to have the Slam Players Championship finals. And then before we know it, the World Championship is going to be here. So this sort of next 2 or 3 months can really be the difference between a player being in the top 16 or top 32 or even losing their tour card. There's so much to play for, so much drama.
It is, yeah. And I do love this event, I've got to be honest, because in a similar way to the World Grand Prix, really, it tends to throw up shocks and surprise results. And Michael van Gerwen won this event 4 years in a row between 2014 and 2017. But since then, it's been Peter Wright winning it twice, Rob Cross winning it twice. We saw Ross Smith win his first big TV title here a couple of years ago. So I wouldn't call them massive upsets, but I think it's fair to say that none of them would have gone off the favourite to win it. So it certainly does lend itself to a little bit of an upset, shall we say. Just for anyone that's not aware, the European Championship is basically the culmination of this year's European Tour. So there's been 13 events on the Euro Tour going around the continent. We've had several different winners. And you're basically ranked purely on your achievements on this year's Euro Tour, which is why Martin Schindler, the Wall, is actually number one seed for this event because he won 2 Euro Tour titles, having never won one previously before this year. Fantastic year for him, and he's rewarded with that number one seeding. But what that does mean is that we have some players meeting very early in this tournament who wouldn't normally meet until the latter stages. So there's a room for a little bit of chaos and room for plenty of drama. 32 players have qualified. 4 days of action starting this Thursday, and Sunday we'll see the final and the winner crowned. So, Connor, I think the best place to start, mate, probably is by pulling this draw up. And as you can see on the screen, they are the brackets. So those first 4 games are quarter 1, the next 4 are quarter 2, and then we're into the bottom half. Next 4 are quarter 3, and the last 4 are quarter 4. So we'll start with the outright market first. I'm going to bring the odds up along the bottom of your screen, but just for the benefit of those who have just got a listening ear at the moment, Luke Humphries is the 7-2 favourite here. Luke Littler is quite close behind him at 4-1. Then a bit of a jump to Michael van Gerwen, who is 8-1. Another jump to Gerwin Price at 14-1. Gary Anderson is 16-1. Michael Smith 22-1. Then you have 33-1 about Ross Smith and Dave Chisnell. Rob Cross 35-1. A trio of players at 40-1, Damon Heta, Josh Rock, and Stephen Bunting. And then we have a quartet at 50-1, Martin Schindler, Chris Dobie, Mike De Decker, and Johnny Clayton. And then it's 66-1 or bigger for the rest. So, Connor, I think it's got to be, we've got to start with the 2 Lukes, haven't we, really? Who just repeatedly are dominating affairs at the moment, headlines, trophies. And we're seeing a bit of a chasm open between the Lukes and MVG, aren't we? It used to be a big 4, I suppose, a couple of years ago. Now it's a big, then it was a big 3. Is it becoming a big 2?
Well, I think you can see that in the odds. I mean, you see there Michael van Gerwen at 8-1. Every tournament, he just seems to be drifting further and further away. And that purely becomes because of his record. You know, he ended his ranking title drought this year, but, you know, it was over a year before he'd won a ranking title. He's not won a ranking major in well over a year now. In fact, the Players' Championship Finals is the only major he has on that 2-year rolling order of merit. But despite all of that, he is still number 3 in the world, provisionally after the World Championship, world number 2. But it just seems no matter what Michael van Gerwen does at the moment, he gets outdone by the 2 Lukes, whether it's Humphries or Littler. And probably a perfect example of that was in the European Tour. Michael van Gerwen averaged 112.51, I think it was. And he only got 1 leg against Luke Littler. It was the highest
ever losing average
in history on the Euro Tour. It's absolutely incredible. And I think Michael van Gerwen, and I think normally Michael van Gerwen would be really annoyed and frustrated, and he would be blaming himself if he was to lose a match. Whereas I think you've seen, just when you've listened to his interviews and you've seen the way he's acted, he's almost accepted now that he is not the best player in the world, and actually probably is the third best player, which is, it's taken a long time for him to accept that, but that's the reality, and he knows that himself.
And it's going to be an interesting one to see how he responds, really, because we did see him, of course, win a Euro Tour event last month, beating Gian van Veen 8-7 in the final. And there was a really emotional reaction from MVG there. Clearly, when he wins these titles now, he really enjoys it because he's not doing it as regularly as we used to seeing him do. And he also won a Pro Tour title as well this month. So he's certainly in good nick. And for some people, that 8-1 will appeal, I'm sure. If I was pushing you, Connor, and this is a difficult one, and I've heard different answers from different people, all who I consider to be very knowledgeable. Luke Humphries 7-2 or Luke Littler 4-1. Who is the better bet there for you? Who's the safer pick?
Well, I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, but I was talking to Rod Studd, Sky Sports commentator at the World Grand Prix, and he likes to bet. He's mentioned the odds and commentary a lot of times, and he says he makes a lot of money to back against Luke Littler just because he goes off favourite for every tournament. This is probably one of the first tournaments in a long time he's not gone off favourite. Humphries just picked him there. But yeah, I do think in terms of who the best player in the world is, I don't think you can split the two. But in terms of who the most consistent is, I think Humphries just has that edge. So if I was going to pick either of them, I would say Luke Humphries. And I think experience comes into it as well. But it nearly is a coin toss. I think if they played 100 matches, it might be 53-47 in favour of Humphries. Those two are just, they can both go out there and average over 110.
Yeah, I agree. It's so hard to split them. And I feel like I've said a lot of times on the channel about my preference for Humphries in these betting markets over Littler, but I feel like that may come across that I have a slight against Littler. I mean, he's the best thing I've ever seen in darts. Quite simply, when you consider his age, his impact, his arrival, how his first year has gone, like you just can't fault the lad. But we are splitting hairs here with these two, aren't we? And I do just feel that Humphries' B game is maybe a little bit more reliable than Littler's, is probably the way I would summarise it. We do some very occasionally, as you would expect with Luke so early in his career, Littler that is, we occasionally see his head go a little bit, even if it's just for a leg or two. But that at the top level, that's all it takes sometimes. And I think we saw another example of it at the Euro Tour last weekend when Humphries beat him in the semi-final. There was just a point where he missed a few doubles. He was already chasing and he just seemed frustrated, didn't he? And he just cut that frustrated figure. You don't really see that with Luke Humphries. You certainly used to early in his career, but I think that's been the big difference in Luke Humphries in the last couple of years. He's matured. He's kicked that out of his game now, and his mentality and mindset is second to none for me. And that's probably the difference. But we all know that Littler's ceiling, well, we don't even know what his ceiling is yet, do we? He keeps breaking
it's
records.
scary.
So
it really is scary. It could get better.
If you bump into Luke Littler when he's on it, you're going home. It's quite simple. And that doesn't matter who you are. So that's why it makes it so fascinating. It makes such a good betting market. And of course, beyond the three that we mentioned, we have so much talent in depth now, and so many players that can go and win this title. Perfectly illustrated by Ross Smith a couple of years ago, a really deserved winner of this title. He's 33-1 to retain his title. Connor, I won't go into all of the names at this point, but maybe if you just want to pluck out one name from the rest. I mean, I'll go first here. I was really surprised to see Mike De Decker, the World Grand Prix winner, out at 50-1 for this. And a lot of people would maybe say, well, you're just following the recency bias there of De Decker. But I am, to a degree. But what I would also say to that is, sometimes with players, they just need the apple to fall, don't they? And they just need the penny to drop. And Mike De Decker's run at that World Grand Prix, to me, was a player who had finally found the confidence to play his best game on TV. He beat a who's who of darts stars, really, to win that title, including beating Luke Humphries in the final. He said afterwards how much confidence that has filled him with. He said last week how much he's enjoying playing in front of the big stage and the TV cameras now at the Euro Tour. He went out of last weekend's Euro Tour at the quarterfinal stage to Luke Humphries. Yes, he lost 6-2, averaged low 90s. Prior to that, he'd put in averages of 104, 102 and 104. I think De Decker has finally just found that next level on the TV. It's a big ask to go and win another tournament back-to-back. but I do think 50-1 is a little bit disrespectful given everything we've seen from him in the last month. I don't know how you feel about that, and whether there's any other players in this kind of best of the rest that you would want to flag up.
Yeah, I mean, just on Mike, 50-1 is surprising because if you consider that for the World Championship, you can get about 25-1 now. It does seem quite a bit of a jump considering the form that he's in. But just looking at those odds on the bottom there, one that really, really stands out, and I can't really get my head around why he's quite that big of a price, is Rob Cross at 35-1. Rob Cross has won the European Championship twice, and I think there's one thing to maneuver in this tournament which can be difficult for other players, and that is you've got to play, if you're going to win the title, multiple long format matches on the same day. On that Sunday, you've got the quarters and the semis and the final. Rob Cross can do that. He's done that so many times before. He made the Grand Slam final last year, which is the same thing. He's won the European Championship twice. Now, I understand that he's in that sort of same mini section of the draw with Luke Humphries, but Rob Cross is a world-class player, and he's been playing world-class darts for quite a while now. He's got that love of darts back. You would expect him to come through a tie against James Wade, albeit it will be difficult because Wade has found some form. And if he can get through Luke Humphries, then he's got a real shot. I can't believe he's 35-1 when you consider Ross Smith, who since winning it hasn't really done much on TV, is 33-1. That for me has really, really caught my eye.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point about the long format games on the same day, because we see it often with the European Tour as well, don't we, where you're playing 4 games on the final day if you're going to win the title, and sometimes experience comes to the fore there, and we see the likes of, I don't know, Dave Chisnell is a great example where he's maybe not playing his A game, but he's done it so many times playing those multiple games. He just finds ways of getting through. And then inevitably come the final, when his opponent's maybe flagging a little bit, Chizzy seems to find a little bit extra on those Euro tours. And I think Rob Cross's experience as a 2-time former winner in the format, it's a really good point. And interesting one to pick up there. So what we're going to do now, before giving our sort of best picks, we're going to just go through it quarter by quarter, and we do have individual betting markets for the quarters. So I'm bringing quarter one up on your screen now. Now those are the top 4 matches on your screen. This is which player is going to come through there, and they've got to get to the semi-finals for this to be a winning bet. So this is a much nicer way of playing it, in my opinion. So in quarter one, Going Price is your 5-2 favourite. Ross Smith is 4-1. Ryan Searle is 9-2. Number 1 seed Martin Schindler is 7-1. And then we're into double figures. Dirk van Dijvenbode 10-1. Daryl Gurney 12-1. Raymond van Barneveld 14-1. Luke Woodhouse is 22-1 outsider to come through this quarter. Now, if we break down the actual games, Martin Schindler faces Dirk van Dijvenbode. The winner of that will play Going Price or Daryl Gurney. It's Searle versus Barney, and it's Ross Smith versus Luke Woodhouse. Connor, what's your initial feelings on this quarter? Going Price a favourite, but I mean, we talk about MBG's poor record over the last year in terms of major titles and TV titles. Guess he's having similar struggles, isn't he?
If I'm going to be blunt, I have no confidence in Going Price at the moment. He can play well, and when it comes to a big moment in a match, he's not hitting the right shot. I'm not sure if that hunger is there, that desire. I mean, he's got other things, other businesses going on away from that. So how focused is he on winning? It's this title drought now this ranking title drought has been going on for a long, long time. And I've not seen much in TV tournaments to suggest that he's going to change that, especially when he's in a section of the draw where he's got number 1 seed Martin Schindler, who's been unbelievable this year, and he's got one of the most naturally talented, in my opinion, untaught, in Ryan Searle. If Ryan Searle practiced and he was really committed and dedicated, he could win a lot. He could win a lot. He's almost like a B-Tech version of Luke Humphries, but if he had the same commitment, and he's admitted before he gets lazy, if he had the same commitment, he could win major after major. And I think he will win a major, and it could be this weekend. So for me, Martin Schindler and Ryan Searle, those are the 2 that are really catching my eye.
I would agree with you there. I would agree with you. I think this is a quarter where if you are a betting man or betting woman, you have to be having a bet here, because I think Going Price is a very opposable favourite in this quarter. He just seems to find a way to lose at the moment in these kind of events, and as Connor touched on, questions over his hunger. Ross Smith, as you quite rightly pointed out earlier in the video, Connor, as much as I'm a massive fan of Ross, he probably hasn't been at his best by his own admission in the last few months. He's played in patches, hasn't he? He was fantastic in the first round of the World Grand Prix, and I thought, here we go, Ross Smith's back. And then the next night, he goes out to Johnny Clayton in a subpar affair. So frustrating for Ross. I'm sure he'll get that consistency back in his game because he has a beautiful throw. Got to say, one of my favourite throws to watch. But opposable at the moment, I would say. So that brings you on to Searle, 9-2, Schindler, 7-1. At the prices, I think Schindler is the one I want to be with, just because he's quite a little bit bigger. And I just think he's playing so well this year. Like you say, 2-time European Tour winner. I saw an interview with him recently where he said, I am one of the big guys now. I am one of the men to beat now. And again, I talk about that confidence coming in with Mike de Decker. I think Schindler is showing that, maybe to a lesser degree because he hasn't won a major per se, but he's certainly gone up a level in terms of his self-belief, which I think is really important. And his natural ability, his 180 hitting, is right up there with the very best of them, isn't it? Also got to factor in the home crowd in Dortmund, going to be massively pro Schindler. We have seen him produce his best start often in Germany. So I think he's a cracking bet in this quarter. I think 7-1 is really, really fair. Just before we move on from this quarter, Connor, would you give any of the outside four, Dirk, Gurney, Barney, Woodhouse, would you give them a squeak of a run? Who, if any, jumps out there?
Well, out of those ones, I'd have to say Dirk van Dijvenbode, just because he had his injury issues and he was really, really struggling with that. But since then, he's not always getting the results, but the performances are there. He is getting those ton plus averages back. He's facing number one seed Martin Schindler in the first round, but that's best of 11. Now, I know you've got the German crowd, but in a best of 11, anything can happen. Dirk van Dijvenbode can go out there and average 103. And he could do the same against Gerben Price. So for me, Dirk van Dijvenbode, he might be feeling that the pressure is off because it was squeaky bum time at the Czech Darts Open because he very, very nearly lost his spot. Niels Zonneveld and Kim Huybrechts both one game away from pinching that spot.
Zonneveld missed the match start, didn't he? To
absolutely, yeah, the bullseye. So he's probably thinking how he got himself into that situation. But now he's in Dortmund. I think out of those outside ones, I do quite like Dirk. Raymond van Barneveld, Luke Woodhouse. I don't love what I'm seeing for them to come through that, but you never know. But yeah, I'm staying away from those.
Yeah, good to get a word for Dirk because he's had a really tough time, but he definitely is on the right path. And a Pro Tour semi-final recently as well. Last week, I think, stopped by Josh Rock in a game he probably should have won. So the signs are good for Dirk. But yeah, Martin Schindler seems to be our collective pick in quarter one. Let's move on to quarter two then, which are those 4 games below. Michael van Gerwen in this section, he is a 9-4 favourite to come through this, but wow, this is a stacked little section, isn't it? We have 2 more world champions just behind him, former world champions, and Gary Anderson 4-1 to come through this quarter. Michael Smith 9-2. 4th favourite is Dave Chisnell, who's a serial winner on the European Tour and has shown a real loving for these kind of stages over his career. Stephen Bunting 9-1. Gian van Veen 18-1, which seems crazy for someone of his talent, but it is a tough old section. Richie Edhouse, who just continues to be one of the most consistent performers on the circuit, 28-1. And home favourite Gabriel Clemens, he's not had a great year, but he's a former World Championship semi-finalist, 40-1 outsider. Connor, we touched on MVG and we touched on his good recent form. I think he deserves to be favourite to come through this section, but it's not going to be easy for him, is it?
No, I think in terms of where you place your bet, I think 9-4, you just absolutely go nowhere near that. I mean, it's such an unpredictable little section of the draw there. I mean, if he beats Gabriel Clemens, I expect him to beat Gabriel Clemens. I don't think that if there's one player where the crowd isn't going to affect, it's Michael van Gerwen. He's not going to give a monkeys about what that German crowd does, so that's not going to bother him. Stephen Bunting, Anderson after that, and then Chizzy, Michael Smith, Van Veen, and Richie Edhouse. I mean, it's so tough. I don't like using this phrase, but Michael van Gerwen is due a major. But in terms of coming through the quarter, he's not where to look. You mentioned it. I think you might mention it again. Gian van Veen at 18-1. Made the semi-final last year in this tournament. Knocked out Michael van Gerwen en route. Even when he's lost in majors, and thinking back to the match play against Rob Cross, he's been really, really impressive. And every time
against Ross Smith in the Grand Prix as well last month, he was very good in defeat.
He was brilliant, and he's got such a mature head as well. He really, really is brilliant. So he's the one I'm looking at 18-1. Just a word on Michael Smith and Dave Chisnell. Michael Smith, he's defended the final ranking money from here, then the Grand Slam money, then the World Championship money. Now he's world number 2 at the moment. Provisionally after the World Championship, his shoes have dropped to 14. He has said that he's not thinking about that. You've got to be thinking about that. Against Dave Chisnell, who's been unbelievable on the European Tour, in a short format match with that ranking money, that's just so much more pressure that he's got that nobody else has. I think he could be in real trouble. I mean, 29th, Michael Smith, 29th seed, the 13 events. So we struggled on the European Tour this season.
Yeah, it's a very valid point, and yeah, I totally agree. How can you not be thinking about such a dramatic drop and all the connotations that come with that as well? Premier League, sports, and seedings for events. I mean, you're going to end up playing the Lukes every second round, aren't you? If you slip down to sort of 15, 16. So yeah, plenty on his plate there, and that's a tough old game to call, as most of them are in this section. I do have to agree with you, Connor, that Gian van Veen, it's all about the price, isn't it? And as much as these guys above him at single figure odds are all imperious opponents, I don't think Gian will fear any of them. He's shown that he can play against the very best. Like you say, he got to the Final Four here last year in what was a real breakthrough for him. And he's just supremely talented. And I think at 18-1, the cherry on the top for me is that he plays Richie Edhouse in his first game, who a player I have a lot of time and respect for, and it takes a really solid performance to beat him. But I think it's one of the better first round draws that you could have, particularly in this section. He's not going straight in against an MVG or a Gary Anderson, is he? He's going into a game that he'll believe if he plays well, he can come out on top of. And then, like you say, Chizzy and Michael Smith, for differing reasons, will have a huge amount of pressure on their shoulders if they do play a Van Veen in round 2, because this continuous conversation of Dave Chisnell trying to win a big TV title will once again rear its head. And we know Chizzy is prone to the odd stinker, while Michael Smith, as you say, defending so much money, there's a lot of pressure on him as well. So I do think Van Veen is the bet there at 18-1. You're going to need some luck, but you need some luck in every match, don't you? So that would be the way I would play that one. And just a quick word for Stephen Bunting, Gary Anderson. What a game that promises to be. I hope they both turn up for that one.
Yeah, I feel sorry for Stephen because he's had Luke Comfort in the World Grand Prix. Now he's got Anderson. It's like, I think if the Premier League spot is not sewn up, he's one deep run away from it. And he keeps getting these absolute killer draws in the opening round. He can come through them, but it's never easy for him.
He's good enough to play in the Premier League, isn't he, Stephen? But there's about 20 or 25 players that would say the same thing. And he needs that run, like you say, to just confirm him in. I think the PDC would love to chuck him in because he's such a likeable character, so big on his social media. He's got a bit of a cult following. He just needs to go and do it, doesn't he? So fingers crossed we'll be all going bunting mental on Sunday. I'd love to see it. Quarter 3, then we go into the bottom half, and this is where the Lukes lurk, but they're in different quarters, so they won't meet until at least the semi-finals if they do both progress through there. No foregone conclusion, let me tell you. Luke Humphreys is a 5-4 favourite to come through his quarter. Rob Cross, who Connor gave a strong word for earlier, is 5-1. Then we go all the way up to 9-1 for the inconsistent enigma that is Peter Wright. Chris Dobey, 10-1 after a underwhelming World Grand Prix exit. James Wade out at 12-1. Johnny Clayton, a man refinding a little bit of form, I think, 12-1. Nathan Aspinall, 12-1. We all know what he's capable of on his day. And Jermaine Watamina, he's a 28-1 outsider. Yeah, he's probably not going to come through this section, but a word on Jermaine, he's had a fantastic season. Sometimes he hasn't always got the results his performances have deserved, but he did have a nice deep run in Prague. And yeah, nice to see him here. A reward for a good season, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned that run in Prague, and we spoke about it with Mike Decker. Sometimes just getting that recent form can propel you into further things in the next few events. So I think when Jermaine Watamina saw he was playing Peter Wright, his ears would have pricked up, because Peter Wright, listen, he has won on the European Tour this season. He's the defending champion, but he's still vulnerable. Make no mistake about that. He's still nowhere near the player that he was. He's still inconsistent. Don't think he'll get back to the player that he was. He will win matches and he will put in big performances, and there will be peaks, but there's also going to be a lot of troughs as well. And this could be one of them, especially in that best of 11 format.
I like that, Connor. I'm thinking the exact same thing, to be honest. Watamina to beat Wright looks like a potential upset for me in round one. We touched on Luke Humphries. It's very hard to oppose him. Odds against, some people will just look at that and think, yes, please. But I think you were in the right lines with Rob Cross. If there is someone that's going to be able to deal with that expectation, deal with the format, and kind of go toe to toe with Humphries, it probably is Cross, isn't it? A two-time winner. We saw him dispatch of Littler at the Grand Prix when he was, largely written off by most people. So he could be the man for the job. But we have some dangerous players lurking in Dobey, Wade, Clayton, Aspinall. We know Humphries is a worthy favourite. We know Cross is the likeliest man to beat him in this quarter. But of those guys I just mentioned there, Dobey, Wade, Clayton, Aspinall, who would you lean towards? I mean, for me, Johnny Clayton, something's just clicked with him again in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Good, 2 quarterfinal runs at the Players' Championship last week, which should have been at least semi-finals, really. Threw one away against Michael van Gerwen, I seem to recall. But I think I've really liked his last 2 TV appearances as well. I thought he was really solid at the World Grand Prix. And then I thought on the Euro Tour at the weekend, I thought he was nailed on to make the final. But fair play to Neil Zonneveld. He kind of capitalised on a slow start and managed to edge him out. But yeah, it looks a little bit like the old ferret to me.
Yeah, it does, and I mean, I think after he's been quite open about this. After he lost his father, he was thinking about walking away from the game, and it's been really, really tough for him. So for him to bounce back has been incredible as well. But I'm actually going to say a word for his opponent, Chris Dobey. I keep expecting Chris Dobey to do something, and I expect him to win a major. He's got everything. He's got the ability. He's got the throw. He's got the mindset. And every time I see him lose in the opening stages of a major, I am really surprised. And he lost in the World Grand Prix to Joe Cullen. Now, Joe Cullen did well, but let's be honest, he's had a stinker of the season, so he would have been kicking himself there. And then he got bageled by Jermaine Watamina in the Czech Darts Open. Now, fair play, Jermaine Watamina averaged about 149 or something stupid. It was about 100, 106 or something like that.
It was
Chris
good.
Dobey averaged over a ton himself. But I don't think he's the one to really get bogged down off of losses. If he threw away a 4-0 lead at the World Championship in a race to 5, and I don't think that affected him. So yeah, Chris Dobey will do something one day, and I think it will be soon. And I think he's going to be one of these players like Luke Humphries, where not on the same level, but when he does win one, I think you will start seeing him sort of really get deep into tournaments, and I think he'll be a regular Premier League player. But I do want to give a little bit mention to James Wade as well. He does complain a lot that he gets overlooked. James Wade came into the European Championship last year with no sort of form, made the final, came into the match play with no sort of form, made the final 4. So James Wade should never, ever be overlooked, but he's against one of my picks for the tournament, so I can't big him up too much.
Yeah, James Wade, a former winner of this title, of course, as well. I mean, he's won plenty in his time, hasn't he? But yeah, it's a really tough quarter to call. I probably won't be getting overly involved just because I expect Luke Humphries probably will progress. But yeah, the winner of Dobey and Clayton would be an interesting one for me at the prices, but I can't back them both, unfortunately. So I'll just have to watch that one and then kind of hope that they don't go all the way, or I'll be watching through the cracks of my fingers. Yeah. But anyway, on to quarter 4, which is our final section. And this involves the other Luke, doesn't it? And yeah, he's rightfully a short favourite to come through it, but that will appeal to many as a betting heat because for the reasons mentioned at the start of the video, there is occasions where Littler can be beatable, can have moments of head loss. So there are reasons to maybe want to take him on, but he's an 11-10 favourite. Odds on quite a lot of bookmakers to come through this quarter. Mike De Decker at 6-1 to come through it. Damon Heta is 13-2. Josh Rock 8-1. Danny Nopper is 9-1. Then we have the out of form Joe Cullen 18-1. Ricardo Pietrezco, who doesn't seem to have fully recovered from an injury for my money, is out all the way out of 40-1. Which, to be honest, if Pietrezco was 80% fit, that would be a big price in his home country. But yeah, he's showing some good performances, but also some pretty abject performances as well. So hard to know where he's at, really. Andrew Gilding, former UK Open champion, also 40-1, not had the best of years. Connor, are you going to have any complaints if I kind of put a line through Cullen, Pietrezco and Gilding in this section and say that they're probably not going to come through it?
No, I don't have any complaints there. Like I said, I think Ricardo, if he was 100% fit, but there's just so many question marks over him. And then if he does beat Damon Hitter, he's got to face Luke Littler. What I will say about Ricardo though is that he can come through Damon Hitter in a best of 11 format. Because, like I said, even despite this injury, he has played matches still in that format and produced good numbers and good performances. And then he's facing Luke Littler in Germany. Now, you've mentioned Luke Littler can lose his head a little bit. He's not used to the crowd getting on his back. And I think we saw it against Luke Humphries in the Czech Darts Open, where when things weren't going right, he was looking towards the crowd and he was huffing and puffing. And if he does that against the German crowd, they will be on his back,
Oh, they'll
especially with the
turn. Yeah, they
history
will.
there between Ricardo and Luke Littler. So I maybe put a pound on him. I maybe won't stake any more than that, but I think he's got a chance, but he's going to need
I can
other
see
things
it.
to help him there.
I can see it. I had to talk myself out of it because before I came on the video, I thought that 40-1 looks massive. And then I thought, come on, he's carrying an injury. It's not the Pietrezco that you're thinking about in your head. But you know what? You make a great point if he does play Littler. Put it this way. I think Littler would rather play Damon Heta, who
Yeah,
is a more reliable and, no offense, Ricardo, a better player, generally speaking, in terms of pure numbers. But I think Littler, like you said, the crowd could be a huge factor there. So that's definitely an angle to watch. And yeah, one you've kind of made me think twice about there, Connor. I can't lie. Luke Littler, as I say, a very short price favourite. Now, it looks, if we take out our what we just discussed about Pietrezco, like he has 4 serious rivals here: Mike De Decker, Damon Heta, Josh Rock, and Danny Noppert. I'm almost inclined to leave Danny out of that. I think he beat Joe Cullen, but I don't think he's had the best of years.
yeah.
So then, I suppose we should put a little bit of focus on this Josh Rock versus Mike De Decker game, Connor. I think Josh Rock will fancy this game. It'll be played at a quick, frenetic pace that will suit him. But as I say, everything I say about Mike De Decker, I don't think this is the same Mike De Decker that we were dealing with a month ago. And I think he'll come through it. And I really, really do think Mike De Decker is overpriced for this tournament. I know we've kind of touched on it already, but would he be the likeliest one to come through this, if not Littler?
Um, I mean, I've always been a big fan of Damon Hector, and I think he's
Mm.
been sort of underrated because he's reached a career high of top 8 in the world before, and I think he's about top 10 now, or certainly around that. And a lot of people say he can't do it on TV. Well, he's the past sort of 18 months has made a lot of TV quarterfinals, made one semi-final as well at the UK Open. And if he does get through Ricardo, which we expect him to, we've spoken about Ricardo, what he can do, but we expect Damon to come through that. He'll then face Luke Littler. And whether he wins or loses, Damon Hector loves playing against Luke Littler. He beat him in one of the greatest games that we've ever seen at the UK Open this year to make his first major
That was my game of the year, that one.
played him at the Czech Darts Open as well, which, I mean, Luke Littler, was that the game he averaged 116 or 110? Either way, he was a tournament record at the time. So, it's taken unbelievable performances to stop him. Damon Hedger's not scared of Luke Littler. He will play his best stuff. I think he likes the rhythm. And like we said, Luke Littler is not impervious in these ranking tournaments. We saw early exits at the match play the World Grand Prix. Fair enough, to be fair. He's played Rob Cross and Michael van Gerwen in them both. With Josh Rock and Mike De Decker, I can't call. I think it's a 50-50 match, really. Mike De Decker, he does seem to have built off of that World Grand Prix win. He's had some big performances since then, but it's when is it going to stop? Is it going to stop already? Is it going to stop in a few weeks' time? There's still question marks for me, and I think in terms of a 50-50 match and stay away, a 50-1 to win the tournament is a ridiculous price, absolutely. But yeah, I do like Damon Hector, and I do watch him at every single tournament thinking, is this the one he does something in?
Dearly love it to be. Yeah, Damon was very good to us when we were just starting out as a darts channel, to come on a couple of times and talk to us in depth about his career and stuff. And look, he's got the talent. He's got the talent, the same
He's got
amount
a
of talent
banana
as
skin
any of
on
these guys.
Ricardo.
It's just he's just got to find a way, and it's just going to all come together for him. And we know that, like, sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to it. You just need a week where it just falls into place. Few would have plucked Mike De Decker out last at the Grand Prix. Few would have picked Ross Smith out a couple of years ago here. You just need things to fall into place. I have no doubt they will at some point. Hopefully it is this week for him. Yeah, hopefully it is. As I say, Mike De Decker, it's more his outright price that appeals to me here, because I think 50 to 1 is just too big. And we saw him, I was impressed with how he grew into the tournament at the World Grand Prix. He seemed to get better and better, didn't he, every game? So something similar here would make him, if he comes through this quarter, I'm not bothered about getting on the 6 to 1, but I'd like to be on him at 50 to 1 when he's in the semi-finals, if you know what I mean. So that's the way I would play that one. But yeah, I think that pretty much does us there, Connor. If you were having one bet on this tournament, I'm going to say it there. Mike De Decker 50 to 1 each way would be my one outright pick. If you were placing a bet on one person to win this, who would it be?
To win the tournament, I would say I'm going to go with Rob Cross at 35 to 1. I don't think he should be 35 to 1 to win any major. That is a staggeringly high price, in my opinion. But the other thing that really caught my eye, just going through that, is Martin Schindler. I think he was 7 to 1 to win that quarter. It's number one seed for a reason. The favourite in there is Gabriel Price, who was probably, dare I say, the weakest favourite in the of all four quarters.
Yes, I'd agree with that.
So yeah, those are the two that have really drawing my eye. Martin Schindler has been consistently fantastic throughout this year, and Rob Cross has been playing world-class darts for a long, long time now. And he's got the experience to win this tournament. He's done it twice before.
Quarter one, that would be my best bet as well of these outright markets. Martin Schindler 7 to 1 for the top quarter. So glad to see me and Connor agreeing on that one. I really do think that's a fantastic price. He's in his home country, playing fantastically, number one seed for a reason, and nobody to fear in that section of the draw for the wall. I think the home crowd might carry him on to another memorable run in what has been a breakout year for him. We also think that Gian van Veen is worth a little investment at 18 to 1 in a wide open quarter two. He has the talent to beat anybody, doesn't he? And enjoyed the semi-final run here last year, so back on familiar territory. And then Rob Cross, Connor made a case for him 5 to 1 as the likeliest threat to Luke Humphries. We wouldn't be going crazy on that one, because I think we probably do both expect Luke to ultimately come through that one. I'm not going to put a bet up for quarter four because we made a case for about half of the quarter. So we'll leave that one there. That is a tough one to call. But yeah, Mike De Decker 50 to 1, Rob Cross 35 to 1 are our outright picks. Martin Schindler 7 to 1 is our best bet. I hope you enjoyed this European Championship preview. Please do drop us a comment. I'd love to hear who you think is going to win or go deep at the European Championship, particularly if you fancy one of the outsiders. Do you think Luke Humphries is the correct favourite, or would you have made Luke Littler favourite? Let me know if you have any thoughts on that as well. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give us a thumbs up, and please do consider subscribing to Odds Now as well. If you don't have a YouTube account, it only takes 2 minutes to make one. We'd really love to have you on board for all of our future videos, and I'm sure me and Connor will be back with so much darts coming up. Absolutely. I am confident we'll be back very, very soon to preview some more darts. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.